Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. I know all of you are very, very busy, and you've taken a lot of time out of your schedule to be with us today, and I'm really hoping that this is going to be true of you, as valuable to you as it is to us. So, you had heard about what DARPA is. Now specifically, what is BTO? What is our mission? As you heard from the director, the BTO is charged with exploring the science of biology to determine if there are places we can use targeted investment to build a capability to advance national security. We are in our first year of this. And so if you listen to the program managers, they come forward and talk to you about what DARPA is currently investing in, you will see that it seems to be in some very narrow areas: medicine, neuroscience, and synthetic biology. To us, these are wonderful starting points. And let me reiterate that word, starting points. To us, the world of biology is, in fact, the natural world. There are many areas that we are hope to get involved in as the opportunities prove themselves. I can tell you right now that we're already exploring the world of mycology, the world of entomology, the world of paleobiology, even exobiology. And you would ask, what in heaven's name can come from those things that will build a capability for national security? And we don't know. We accept in our role that we don't know what we don't know. So it behooves us to move forward and to actually explore those places and to ask those questions. Make no mistake, we will remain to be committed to some of the most important things that do make obvious sense, such as medicine, such as synthetic biology, and neuroscience. But the BTO of 2015 will not be the same BTO of 2025 and 2035. That is the beauty of DARPA. There is no DARPA model, template today that will sustain itself over the next 10, 20, 30 years. It will constantly evolve because the world evolves, our threats evolve, and on it goes. But that's the point of this, isn't it? Because I want to come back to that word capability. The director often tells us, reminds us, that in fact, DARPA does fundamental research, not as a goal, but to build a capability. And what exactly does that mean? It means that at the end of the day, you have something, knowledge, you have something, a product, you have something, a widget, that in fact you can apply in the setting of national security. But to get from A to Z is a long pathway. You heard from Ms. Siegel today. It is a long pathway, and it can be a very expensive pathway. DARPA is not going to carry it from A to Z. What we do is we do the front end. We take something that's very innovative from the eminent scientists, the accomplished technologists. We work with them in that community to develop a capability, what is the seeds of a capability, but at some point we have to hand it off. Our sister offices at DARPA typically hand off to the big Army, the big Navy, the big Air Force. You're building a missile system, you're building a big aircraft, you're building a drone system, and on it goes. It makes perfect sense to transition it to those large organizations, to carry it through to the capability. But let's look in the world of biology, particularly look in the world of medicine. There are many other applications to medicine other than combat casualty. And in fact, many of them are very beneficent. And we hope that they are beneficent. I am a physician. And I would want many of the things that we create to, in fact, go and take care of the patients of which I take care of. I still practice medicine. You don't want me as your doctor, by the way, because I'm a neurointensive. So I'm looking down and you're looking up. That's bad. All right? So, but we want those things to move forward. But we're not going to do it alone. We realize that there's another opportunity space, and that is the opportunity to work with many of you, the entrepreneurs, the startups, the true innovators of the engines of the industry, and the venture capitalists and the private equity groups. All of you create a milieu for us that is new to us, so we will be learning together, but at the end of the day, it's to build this capability. It's to go from A through Z, because at the end of the day, we could fund some great, great studies, work with some of the finest minds in our country, and even outside our country. And their hope is that maybe they'll publish some papers, good. They'll issue a patent, good. But if they stop there, it's nothing more than a science fair project. At the end of the day, we have to build that capability. And we recognize the brilliance of our innovators, the brilliance of our technologists, but they equally need the brilliance of captains of industry, such as many of you are in this room, to help them carry it from the laboratory and into the operational space. Be it commercial, be it in the Department of Defense, who cares? But the idea is to get it so it actually has value. And it doesn't have value. And I don't mean just monetary value. I actually mean value to somebody's health, value to somebody's livelihood, value to the country. Let's pretend that you do some of the things that Dr. Gallivan will tell you about, and in fact, you replace chemical fertilizers with a different approach. And you're able to improve crop output, and you can feed the world. That is a good thing. But to get from A to Z will require a collective group of brilliant people who are brilliant in different ways. And that's what this meeting is all about, is to try to develop that community of which the director spoke of, and from that move forward, so when in the end of the day develop capability, however you will define it. And so that's what today is about. So I'm going to start now by talking about what a DARPA program really is. And I'm going to talk about a DARPA program that we did take from A through Z. And that program is the Revolutionizing Prosthesis program. And my good friend, Dr. Mike McLaughlin from APL is here. I wish Dr. Andy Schwartz and Dr. Boninger were here, but these are the great people that made it happen. And DARPA, I believe, my job is to enable those wonderful people to do great things. My job is an enabler. That's what I do, all right? So how did I get here? How did I get here? I would like to tell you that there was a seminal point in my life that I decided to go and do something pretty remarkable, but that never really happened. I kind of bumbled my way in. And in fact, the way it happened was that I joined the Army. And no, I wasn't trying to escape a prison term, but I joined the Army because, quite frankly, I was poor. I wanted to be a doctor, and I didn't have the money to be a doctor. I needed a rich uncle. And so I did find a rich uncle. It happened to be Uncle Sam. And so Uncle Sam was very kind and gave me all this money, but in exchange I had to work on his farm. And unfortunately, at one point in my life, I was absolutely convinced I owed Uncle Sam so much time that should I die and come back again, I'd still owe him a few more years. But when you enter, so I did join the Army, they paid for school and all is good. But the point that I want to make is that I joined for a reason, which was I needed scholarship money. But I stayed for a different reason. And that happens in life often, does it not? We often go into one thing for a particular idea, and we end up staying for another reason. And the reason I stayed, I did pay off my debt at one point, but I decided to stay. And you'll say, why in heaven's name would you stay? And I stayed because of this. I had an opportunity to work with and to take care of young service members. And those young service members were kind of like me. They ended up joining the service for a number of different reasons. But many of them stay for a different reason, and it evolves over time. And I submit to you, how many of you in this room have a family member who has recently or is serving in the United States military? How many of you in the room? So there's some of you here. How many of you have actually had a family member serve in World War II? A lot of you. How many of you have actually had family members who actually served in Vietnam or any of the other conflicts that we've had? And that's, so just about everybody in this room. If you talk to them, you ask them, why did you go into the military? And why did you even, what was good about the military? They will tell you some very fine things, by and large. And that is, in fact, still true today. We ask ourselves, what is the world like? The world is the world. So when do we see the sign that says, oh, free the girls from Boko Haram? Who is going to actually free the girls? We talk about ISIS. You read about it in the newspapers. Somebody has to stop ISIS. Who's that somebody? If, in fact, our country decides, and that's a decision for our leaders, that they want to go free the girls in Boko Haram, or they want to go stop ISIS, or they want to go and send some people to help in the Ebola crisis, who do they send? They send these kids. These young service members are the who. And when we send them there, make no mistake about it, make absolutely no mistake about it, there's a price to be paid. There's going to be a bill that's tendered. And that bill has to be paid by somebody. And that somebody are those guys. These are my patients. These are my patients. This little boy here is an Afghan. He was playing with a Russian landmine. He lost part of his right arm, as you can see, and lost part of his right leg. When I was in Iraq in 2005, that was a young soldier. That is a non-viable leg. He did lose that leg, and he would lose that arm on the same side. There is a price to be paid. And I believe that part of my missions of my little office is, in fact, to help tender that bill. So when we came back, we decided that I was very lucky. In 2003, I was not a program manager. In 2004, I became a program manager. In 2005, when they sent me back to the war, I was already a DARPA program manager. And so when we came back, decided to go after the one problem, and there are many, but the one problem of losing a limb. And losing your leg is a bad thing. But when you think about what you need for your leg, you actually don't need it to do much. You need to stand you upright and to give you locomotion. For that, you basically need a big old stump that actually has 4 levers to it. 4 degrees of freedom: hip, knee, ankle, and big toe. If you have that, you can run, you can jump, you can do all sorts of cool stuff. You can even participate in the Olympics. If you lose your arm, no matter where you lose it, you'll also lose your hand. And this is a remarkable biological device. The hand is so much more complex than the leg by itself. It's 27 degrees of freedom, not including the thumb. And the thumb has an infinite degree of freedom because it's on a ball joint. And look what your hand can do. But where are we today? Where we were today was with this. This actually is a very useful prosthetic device. It has a hook at the very end that opens and closes and allows you to have a tremendous amount of function. You can actually feed yourself with it, you can brush your teeth, you can do all sorts of stuff. But there are a couple of bad things about it. Number one, it's ugly as sin. And so people don't want to wear it because it is ugly as sin. The second thing is, although very functional, it doesn't give you the highest degree of function. Yes, you can brush your teeth, yes, you can feed yourself, but imagine every morning taking care of personal hygiene. You will become on first name basis with your proctologist. So this is not the ideal platform. Instead, let's change the discussion. That's what we think at DARPA. Not what we can give you, but what should we give you? And better still, what do people want? People don't want to look like Captain Hook out of Peter Pan. They want to look like Luke Skywalker or Del Spooner with their role. Heck, I'd like to look like Del Spooner. But you would like to look at those guys because of the functionality of the limb that they have, right? I mean, they actually have a replacement limb. And what does it take to get there? So if we decide now that we're going to take on this problem in a DARPA way, we have to change from what can be done or what is already provided into what we really should be doing. And in fact, that's what we did. We created this program. We decided to put together 2 big difficult problems. What are the 2 big technological barriers? Number one is creating the arm itself, right? You want an arm that looks like an arm, you want an arm that functions like an arm, and you gotta make it only 8 pounds. You ask Mike McLaughlin, he'll tell you, oh my God, he's 8 pounds. I mean, if you give me unlimited size and weight and all that, I can build you an arm that could do all sorts of cool stuff. But 8 pounds, why 8 pounds? Because you don't want, your own arm weighs 8 pounds. And you certainly don't want a 20-pound arm, so you walk around like this all day long, right? And it's got to be durable, it's got to be robust, it's got to be quiet. The poor guy goes in a movie theater, eek, eek, eek. That's no good. So you have to do all those things and package it right in a robotic arm. And then to give the level of control of which we speak, there's only one way to do it. You got to tap into the brain. You got to tap into the brain. You've got to learn how the brain signals. You have to learn how the brain adapts. You have to do all those things, but you have to tap into the brain. And since this is a DARPA program, we build capability, we decided to give the performers 2 years to build the best robot arm and 4 years to get it into the brain. 4 years. This is not one of these long, with our sister agencies, 10, 20, 30-year projects where they're going like, oh, yeah, I got it in a rat to work, I got it in a mouse to work, blah, blah, blah. And you talk to the investigator and says, when are you going to get into humans? Well, we believe we're first in humans in 5 or 10 years. That's a lot of hooey. There are patients waiting for this thing. And patients go, this is really important. They're dying of cancer out there. 20,000 people die of cancer every year on this. 50,000 people die of cancer. So let's say 5, 10 years, that's 250,000 people going to drop dead before you actually get into a human. What is taking you so long? Right? I mean, you're not motivated? Maybe it's because you're under-resourced. And that's one thing DARPA won't do. DARPA will not under-resource you. We'll be very hard taskmasters, but we won't under-resource you. Under-resourcing is dooming you to failure. But make no mistake, this is not your money, this is taxpayers' money. The same people who are dying by the droves with this cancer thing, they're wondering what the heck is going on. They're asking you, let's go, let's go, let's go. But if I give you the resources, we expect you to perform. And if you do perform, we're off the races. If you don't perform, guess what? Like the New York Yankees, we'll get another middle infielder at the All-Star break. And that's just the way life is. But that is okay. That is okay. Because it is another way of doing this kind of R&D. So we had to do all this, and then it required a lot of stuff. You had to do power actuation, you had to go ahead and develop, different kind of sensors and blah, blah, blah. You had to actually develop the device itself, and I already told you it took 2 to 4 years. And you had to connect it up to the brain and all good, all right? And what we did was we worked with some of the very best neuroscientists that we could find. I mean, just eminent people. We're talking about Chris Shenoy down at Stanford. We're talking about Carl Dieseroth down at Stanford. People, we're talking about John Donahue out of Brown University. We're talking about Andy Schwartz at the University of Pittsburgh. We're talking about J.P. He down at Arizona. We're talking about the very best people that we could find and brought them together, made a community so they worked together. We found brilliant engineers. We found Mike McLaughlin down at APL. This is the group that actually built the doggone space shuttle cockpit, for goodness sakes. And we found Dean Kamen, a brilliant man, who actually built the Segway. We actually talk about bringing together the best minds so that we can work together on this very important project. And you know what? They did it. The guys did it. So now that we're at the end of the program, this is a program that's finished. We're at the end of the program. How did it go? And it went pretty well. So we actually developed 2 arms. One, you actually don't need surgery. Just put it on and off you go. And let's see how good it is. All right? And this is what it looks like. And I have to tell you, I'm very proud, we went from idea, sitting around a table, thinking of this thing, and in about 7 years to full FDA approval. Let me reiterate that. Full FDA approval, which means is that this, in a very short period of time, you can go to Walmart and buy one on a blue light special. All right? It is absolutely fully approved. And it's in commercial production today. It is building the capability of which the director constantly inspires us to do. So idea to manufacturing, full FDA approval in 7 years. And it wasn't easy. It took a lot of effort between government, between our academic partners, and our commercial entities. But we all worked together to make it happen. All right? And how good is this little thing? Let's just take a look at it. This gives you a flavor. This is Chuck. He's a bilateral amputee. He's got, it's a modular system, so if you lose it, you can have a whole arm. If you lose above your elbow, you get the elbow on the wrist. If you lose just above the wrist, you get that. And you need to your hand to get the hand. It's a modular system. So Chuck is using the mid-humeral one. That's Randy, who's using the entire full shoulder apparatus. They're handing off a golf ball to each other. You'll see that Randy is now pouring water with his. Very natural movements. Imagine that compared to the hook. So it's a big change. And of course, it has dexterous enough that here you see Chuck picking up a grape and eating it. All right? But then you say, how good is it? Well, here's Chuck eating sushi with chopsticks. So not too bad. What about the brain control? Can we actually get one where we can tap into the brain, all I have to do is think about moving it, and you can move it? And the world is full of choices, right? You're going to get some folks who say, I don't want brain surgery. I totally get it. I hear it all the time. All right? Even when I'm running a special. So they will say, I have an arm for you. But what can't that arm that I showed you do? It doesn't give you fine finger dexterity. It doesn't give you instantaneous control. It certainly doesn't give you sensory feedback. To do that, we really still had to tap in the brain, working with the wonderful neuroscientists, working with the wonderful engineers. We actually developed this one. And I'm going to show you this film clip. And I show this film clip all the time, and it looks a little kludgy to you. It really will. Because what happened was, in end of September of 2011, we hooked it up to a human. This is a human study. And in it, we used ECOG, which is a small little itty-bitty device about the size of your thumbnail, laid over the motor strip, the area of the brain that controls motor activity of your arm, registered the electrical activities done by Andy Schwartz, hooked up to Mike McLaughlin's arm, and you'll see the patient beginning to do it. But what was remarkable about it, we just stood back and we said, let's flick the switch on and see what happens. Seriously, we weren't sure what happened. We thought maybe the thing would catch on fire. And if that happened, well, fine. That's just the way it is. That's science. But we wanted to see how good can it be by flicking the switch. And it looks a little kludgy, but I submit to you, it's a magical moment. And I want to share this with you. So Tim is a quadriplegic. He is just like Christopher Reeve, Superman. Can't move his arms and legs for 7 years.
Baby, I want to hold your hand.
And he's controlling that strictly with
There you go.
There, yeah.
thought alone.
All right, that's nice, solid. Yeah.
Baby. Baby.
That's his fiancée. She hasn't held his hand in 7 years. And then she said, I'm holding your hand. That is not his hand. It's a robot arm. But it's the way he's connected with it. It is the way he's interacted with it. That for her, she was holding his hand. And that's truly a remarkable moment. Now, I know many of you look at it and say, gee, Geoff, it's kind of kludgy, kind of you know, the things that you said it wasn't going to do. But I remind you, that was the first time we did it. Ask yourself this. In 1903, if you stood at the base of Kill Devil Hill, and the Wright brothers pushed their big old airplane, Kitty Hawk, off, and it flew for that 11 miraculous seconds. Some people at that base of that hill say, wow, that thing is loud. That thing really smells bad. You know, that thing is kludgy. What? And it flew for a lousy stinking 11 seconds. What good is it? Let's go home and get something to eat. And then you're going to get another group of people who are going to look at it and go, whoa, they did it. They actually broke free from what everybody else thought could never be done. They flew. And I'm going to start Southwest Airlines. And I'm going to go and start Pan Am. And I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. So which group are you? Which group are you? And I'll say to you, imagine what happened. You know history. 1903, the Wright brothers, 11-second flight. What were airplanes like 15 years later? 1918, the dawn of the First World War. What were airplanes like then? And then now take yourself another 20 years beyond that, just 20 years, right? Just 30 years, maybe 30, 35 years after 1903, at the dawn of World War II, and what were airplanes like then? And then take yourself a lousy 60 years later, 60, that's just a lifetime, 60 years later, and what happened? Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. That is the rate that once you find that breakthrough, the technology takes off. And let me show you what happened 7 months later in this program. 7 months. You saw that. That was, remember I told you, September of 2011. What was like May of 2012 with Jan, another quadriplegic, another patient. What did she do 7 months later?
I can move it up and straight down and left and right and diagonally. I can close it and open it, and I can go forward and back.
That is just the most astounding thing I've ever seen. Can we shake hands?
Sure.
No, really.
Yeah.
Like, come right over here?
Yes, you come over there.
Okay.
Let me grasp your hand there. There we go.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And I can do a fist bump if you'd like.
That's amazing.
And it is, isn't it? It is amazing. But it opens a new world for us. Yes, we are now able to give extraordinary capability back to patients who had lost them, which is the primary goal. But we've also opened a doorway, a tremendous doorway. You can now interact directly with external devices, with thought alone. And in fact, what does it really open the doorway to? Let's think together. What happens if Jan, the same patient who had never flown an airplane before in her entire life, now gets hooked directly into a flight simulator? Can she fly? And she can. She's flying this flight simulator, first time out, and she's achieved level flight. She's flying through a canyon right now. Why? Because she's not thinking brain to stick, stick to arm, arm to rudders, rudders to airplane. She's thinking, I'm flying. I want to bank left, I want to bank right. This is her flying the J-35 Joint Strike Fighter. And although she's flying it a little clumsily, notice she's achieved level flight. She's achieved level flight right out of the box. And that shows you what potential is out there. And that is a DARPA program. But it does bring up something else, doesn't it? Ms. Siegel did bring up the idea of the ELSI issues. Is this, we recognize now with good, with beneficence, comes the opportunity for bad things. Is this enough to stop us moving forward? The answer is absolutely no. DARPA's job is to boldly go forward, and we will boldly go forward. But at the same time, we want to do it in a rational, ethical manner. We will obey all the existing laws. But sometimes the existing laws can't keep up, can they? So it means that we have to engage with all of you. You people out here, you fine people out here who think of these issues. We need to engage in a discussion, a truly important discussion. So as we move forward, and we are going to move forward, that we do so wide-eyed and aware of the potential of the ethical, legal, and societal implications. And that is an area of discussion that we too want to engage with you in this as we create this wonderful community that we're trying to create right now. It's not just about finding money, it's not just about developing commercial enterprise, but it's also, can we do it in an American way? Americans, we want to do things for good. We always have. And so this is an opportunity here in this space also, and all the other things that you will hear today. So I want to finish up now, and I want to complete the circle of the little talk I had with you. A lot of times we enter the service for one reason, and we end up staying for another. But it all comes back to what we are as people. I'm a public servant. I'm a public servant. And my other program managers are public servants. We do things for the public good. So let me share a story with you. When I was in Iraq in 2005, it was a very, very difficult time. There was a lot of casualties coming in. The combat support hospital I was with was called the 86th Combat Support Hospital. And some of you who watch HBO may remember there was a film clip, a very nice documentary called The Baghdad ER. And it was really in the bad old times. That's the 86th Combat Support Hospital. If you actually can look it up online, it's a wonderfully done documentary. You won't see me in it, by the way, because I'm neither a surgeon or good looking, so they kind of kept me out of it's got me stuffed in the closet. But it's a wonderful capture of the time and a place to be at a frontline war zone hospital. And one night, among many, there was a young group of military policemen, and these were reservists from California. They were actually reserve Army soldiers from California serving with the 89th Military Police Brigade, and they were out on patrol in East Baghdad with the Iraqi police, and they were just there to do regular stabilization things, and they got ambushed, and they got hit by an IED, and a bunch of them got hurt, and one kid in particular, who was a turret gunner in a Humvee, was blown out of his turret, landed on his back, and as you can see from his CAT scan here, he had fractures in three different vertebrae in his mid-thoracic region. He had a broken back. And so I went and I saw him, and I said, I examined him, and I said, you bad luck, you've got a broken back in 3 places. Good news, you don't have a spinal cord injury. You have an injury bad enough that I'll just simply put you in a cast, which I did, and you'll get better in about 3 months, but you're going home. You are now out of the war. You have $1 million wound. The wound that's bad enough to get you out of the war, but not so bad that it leaves you with a permanent disability. So you're going home, son. And he grabs me by the tunic and he starts to cry. Just absolutely breaks down and cries. And I said, son, there's no reason to cry. And he said, sir, do not send me home. So I said, why? I said, you have an injury incurred in battle. You will get a Purple Heart. You are one of America's heroes. I said, that's not it. So he goes, when I go home, do you know what I am? I said, no, son, what are you? He goes, I'm an assistant manager at a fast food restaurant. But here, I get to help the Iraqi people rebuild their country. That was one of the most noble things I'd ever heard. He was here in a terrible place, but he was doing the right thing. And that was remarkable. It was remarkable because he is you, and you are he. Because if you went to that place, and you were told to go there and do that thing, forget what the oil companies are saying, forget what the banks are saying, forget what the political leaders are saying. You're going to be there to do what he is doing. You're going to do a job that you believe is right and noble. No matter how you got there and why you got there, you're going to do the right thing. And he's doing the right thing. He represents you, and you represent him. So at the end of the day, in all these things, is what gives our life meaning. How do you create meaning to your life? And I would submit to you is that DARPA, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Do things that change the world. Do things that change how we see the world and how we interact with the world, but in a way that is good for everybody. Because at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're Americans. So at DARPA, we absolutely don't limit ourselves to what can be, rather we reach for what should be. And for that, I ask you to join our journey. Thank you.